good afternoon, good morning. Listen, no matter what time it is, it's always the right time to interview amazing people doing amazing things in local communities. This next guest on I'm Doctor Lett the podcast is no exception to that. Now he just stated that consistency and always showing up. It's probably easier to name the places he's not being shown at times, right? And so I'm honored to be joined by Ted St. John, founder and CEO of Hopetown. This introduction is going to be amazing. So without further ado, Ted, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the compliments that with the invite. I'll try to live up to that, let's say. But really, what I hope to do today is just kind of share where I'm at, like I was sharing with you earlier. As you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Hopetown. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We serve adults with addiction. We do that in a few different ways. Our primary focus is housing, transportation, and employment. We've kind of come through full circle in a lot of ways with the idea of what we've done traditionally by helping guys, stabilize, get to where they need to get to, and get from recovery to workforce, right? Recovery, workforce, housing. They've done the studies, right? And recovery scientists have done the work, and really the result is what we kind of knew, which is the impact on addiction on our society is the loss of productivity. And so I have a hunch that we have an untapped workforce. And I also have an idea that that's a big problem in our culture today. So we're really focused now on recovery to workforce, recovery to purpose. So folks like us finding purpose, which is what my story is all about, that structure, that meaning, that purpose, I think it helps stabilize and give compass to humans. So I don't think we're any different. I just think we need to align better as a human, and those fundamentals matter to us. So that said, I've done a lot of other things. I do a lot of other things, as you mentioned. I'm on several state boards and county boards, and I support a lot of different things within this framework of recovery and behavioral health and workforce. I'm a person with lived experience. I'm 17 years running. My own personal lived experience. I wouldn't have tattooed that on my body because it is a date that you don't get to hold unless you maintain. But my daughter put it on the back of her neck when she was 18. So she was 4 when I came into recovery. So when your daughter puts a tattoo of your clean date as something that's meaningful to her, you do the same and you value it even further. So I double down on that stuff each day. But, I'm also on the president of Ohio Recovery Housing. We have 2,400 recovery homes in Ohio. I'm on the state foundation board at One Ohio, which redirects the opioid settlement funds, $51 million, and then $45 million just in the last basically a year. And I'm on other boards. I'm on the drug court specialty docket advisory board, and I'm on our workforce boards in the region. And I'm kind of the guy that just like I mentioned, I think what I do probably better than not is I'm steady. I keep showing up.
Yes.
Right? I show up every day with the energy, the intensity. My goal is to identify problems and put my energy to solving problems so that I can provide some value and return on investment based on whoever's investing. And really, it's the stakeholders, it's this community. They count on leaders in their communities to step up because the state and the federal government can't fix our problems locally. They expect us to do that, and they'll provide support for those of us who will do that.
Oh, yes, absolutely love that. And for anyone watching this is an interview where Ted's journey, his career story is similar to many of you. And Ted, I would love for you to tell us about your career journey, and then also how remaining sober has benefited your career.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you some bullet points because I'm old. So I'm 57. I got out of the military. I was a cop in the military. I went into the military because I knew I needed discipline. I knew I was going to end up in a jail or in a factory, and either one of them seemed like a sentence to me. So I came from a really poor, abject poverty upbringing. That seemed like a solution to me, and I felt it would improve me, and I knew I needed some work. I joined the military. I then left the military. When I got out, I became a personal trainer. I became a bodybuilder. It was something that I had in me as a kid. I started listening to some Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer stuff way back in the early 90s, and it kind of changed me, that and my military experience. And so I started manifesting things, right? I recognized that there was a technology that's available to us all, that if you can see something and believe it, then it just kind of, you can realize it. And so I started doing that. And, within a year, probably, I was 23 years old. I owned a health club in Beechwood. I was one of the first personal trainers. We had just heard of that, and I became that. Oprah was like the first person that we heard of that had a personal trainer back then. And so I kind of took that path, and I owned and operated my own health club in one of the richest areas in Cleveland for throughout the 90s. And I did a lot of competing, both in powerlifting and bodybuilding. Through that, my disease was developing, right? So I was like a work hard, play hard guy. I had some trauma coming up, like most people do. I wasn't very resilient, so I took to drugs and alcohol, and it became me, right? It became, a phony image portion of me too, because I only shared it with those that I thought wouldn't judge it too harshly. And so I had kind of a double image, phony image, double life going on as it was progressing. And at some point I left. My substance abuse problem became so adamant. And when I stopped competing as a bodybuilder, that left a void in my lifestyle and my discipline, to where I just kind of filled that with drugs.
Yeah.
I was still very functional, and I actually closed the club down, and I started working for one of my clients who owned a 50-year-old steel company in Twinsburg. And I was one of those alpha personalities in a 50-employee, 60-year-old organization, steel company, where half of us were fighting over the same pile of steel in sales, and the rest were supporting that effort. I did that for 9 years, and I put myself in treatment. I had been addicted to Oxycontin for the last 5 years. I was making six-figure income, but I was a house of cards. I was part of that uncaught, meaning I hadn't collected felonies from getting caught doing things, but I was committing them just in my use. And so I took an FMLA, as the short story, and I went into Glen Bay, and I haven't picked up since then. That was, I showed you, it was February 19th I showed up. So I had 1 day of abstinence on the 20th of February, 2009. And I always just say I haven't picked up yet, so there's that.
Wow. Absolutely love that. Incredible story. And I will say, if you have the privilege and honor to meet Ted in person, he looks like he's still competing. Like I'm telling you.
Oh, thanks. I am trying to keep it together, right? And what I find is that steadiness, right? That resiliency. It's kind of, that was something that was in me early, and it was very ego based and insecurity based. I always say I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, right? So there's those things that drive us. And so I think what it's become later in my life is it shows a discipline to do things, whether I'm motivated to do them or not. I've already made the decision, and I don't have to like it. I just need to do it. And there's benefits just by practicing that. So, and then I decided to flex a little over 2 years ago on July 10th of 24. I had been using chewing tobacco since I was 12. So at 55, with never having a break, never taking abstinence from nicotine or tobacco, I stopped using that altogether. So I'm flexing on the fact that I'm 2 years complete abstinence after 42 years plus of using something every day, just to show that I could. And it's pretty ingrained. That was a big move for me, because there wasn't a lot of pain attached to it. So it didn't force me to change. I just decided to do it to show others that it's possible. That's pretty much what I do most days. Like a lot of what I do, I'm on the school board in my hometown. My recovery ecosystem is in this 2,000 person community village, that I'm one of the loudest people in, at least in the county, certainly maybe even in the state, in my recovery. But yet I run an ecosystem in my hometown, and I would have never considered that or believed that. And I can promise you that those who knew me coming up, I would have been voted least likely to ever serve on a school board. That I can be sure of. So, I'm writing stories that I would have never expected to do. I do a lot of these things. Even running for school board is to prove that I can, prove that we can, prove that whatever we think is our limit is just what we think is our limit. People are super supportive of the underdog. They're super supportive of, hey, I kind of had some patterns here that were destructive, but I'm not doing that today. And that's really all people want to hear. They want to provide support to people. Most people do, and that's what I've
Yeah.
experienced.
Ted, I will say, and for anyone watching this, it is important that you understand Ted is the hero that many of us need now, in the future, and growing up.
Mm.
So Ted, that story of resilience, just empowering yourself to go beyond your wildest imagination. Someone needed to hear that. So you deserve to get your flowers publicly.
Thanks for sharing that. It means a lot coming from you. So you and I met briefly a few years ago. We haven't spoke since. We follow each other on social media. I had no idea I had this that until recently that I've made any impression on you, and that has power for me, right? Because
Yes.
I always say I know what it's like to watch me, right? I have an idea what it's like to be on the other side of me, and I'm certain that with my energy and my intensity, I get feedback loops, right? I've had them my whole life. And I know that half of the people, when they see me coming in one form or another, they're probably like, oh boy, here he goes again, right? Hey, look at me. And then you start looking at me. I'm like, hey, stop looking at me because I have this weird loop that is me. But what I do know and why I do it, even after being aware of it, made aware of it as a pattern in some cases and others and not, is because I know it really helps half the people. I get feedback that says, that helps me. That helped me make a decision about my life. That had power for me. So I do it for that. And I'll take the drubbing in the other areas because it's really meaningless to me. I'm doing my thing. I'm on purpose. And I'm flawed, clearly. But the energy is consistent from me that I'm just doing this to save me, right? This is by being authentic myself, by sharing myself authentically, transparently, to the best of my ability, saves me, right? So I do this for me. There is a selfishness
Yes.
to this where, I remember I had an office in the Portage County Jail for 6 years, and, I'd go in there and, guys would be really in a grateful mindset, and they'd be like, man, you're such a good dude. Like, I appreciate everything you do for us, man. And like, you're a good guy, man. And I'm be like, well, okay. So I'm not a bad guy, and I'm not saying I'm not a good guy, but that's not necessarily what happens, why we do these things. We create things and become others-centered so that we don't become self-centered to a point where we self-destruct. I've lived that life. I know what that is. I know what it's like to disorder in that direction of self-centeredness. And that's the primary disorder that I have is I have this obsession, compulsion, and self-centeredness at my core. And when I don't do something to counterbalance that, I self-destruct. So without these things, as heavy and as difficult as they are to carry consistently, I'm on a good run in my life, man. I've been doing a lot. I as I shared with you the early parts of my career, I was it was pretty good. I was pretty driven and I was pretty good at building things up, extraordinary things that nobody would have expected of me except me, right? But I would then self-sabotage because my real conscience didn't believe that I deserved what I got.
Wow. Now that is a excellent lead in. Now we didn't practice these questions for anyone watching.
We've never
but
talked, really.
but
Yeah.
Ted has just such an amazing story that when I craft my interview questions for my guests, I love to bring out the best in any interview guest because they've made mistakes, they've overcame obstacles, but now they're doing great things and giving back to the community.